In the 60s, you didn't need a masterpiece to become a superstar. You just needed a high-pitched monster voice, a catchy playground rhyme, or a song about a teeny-weeny bikini. These tracks started as simple gimmicks, studio experiments, or total accidents, but they did the impossible. They crushed the icons of rock and roll and stayed at #1 for weeks. From a cartoon band that didn't even exist to a man who literally screamed his way to the top of the radio, these are the hits that were never meant to be taken seriously, but ended up defining an entire generation. Let's dive into the most ridiculous songs of the 60s that somehow conquered the world. Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini by Brian Hyland, 1960. In 1960, the music world was still a bit conservative.
She was as nervous as she could be. She was afraid, and I wonder what she's gonna do. Now she's afraid.
For tell the people what she wore.
It was
And the idea of a bikini was actually quite scandalous. Brian Hyland was only 16 years old when he recorded this bubblegum novelty track about a girl who is too shy to leave the locker room because her swimsuit is just too revealing. The song features a playful, almost nursery rhyme melody, and the high-pitched voice that asks, 1, 2, 3, 4, tell the people what you wore.
I will tell you more.
It was a total gimmick, but it hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became a global obsession. The joke here is that the song turned a taboo piece of clothing into a massive commercial joke. It didn't just top the charts, it actually triggered a massive surge in bikini sales across the United States. Before this song, most women wore one-piece suits, but after Brian Hyland sang about that
she wore for the first time today, an itsy bitsy
teeny-weeny yellow bikini, the fashion industry was changed forever. It remains the ultimate example of how a silly, harmless song about a shy girl in a locker room could influence the fashion choices of an entire generation. For your video, this is the perfect starting point to show how joke songs were literally shaping society as early as the start of the decade. Monster Mash by Bobby Boris Piggott, 1962. Imagine a song that sounds exactly like a horror movie trailer, but is meant for a dance party.
I was working in the lab late one night when my aunt, he did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard. They played the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard.
In 1962, aspiring actor Bobby Pickett was doing a comedy routine where he imitated the legendary horror star Boris Karloff. He decided to put that voice onto a record, creating a story about a scientist whose monster wakes up and starts a new dance craze. To make it even weirder, the instruments in the background included a rusty nail being pulled out of a board to simulate a coffin opening, and the straw blowing bubbles in a glass of water for the sound of a bubbling cauldron.
When my eyes beheld an eerie sight, for my monster from his...
The song was a massive gamble. The BBC actually banned it for being too morbid for the radio. However, the public absolutely loved the Boris impression. It hit '1 on the Billboard Hot 100 just before Halloween in 1962.
The graveyard smash. It caught on in a flash.
The crazy part is that it became a hit all over again in the 1970s. It is perhaps the most successful novelty song of all time because it effectively created its own holiday genre. Every single October for the last 60 years, this joke song returns to haunt the airwaves, proving that a good monster impression is worth more than 1,000 serious love ballads. Hello Mutta, Hello Futta, A Letter from Camp by Alan Sherman, 1963. In 1963, a comedy writer named Alan Sherman took a famous piece of classical music, Amilcare Ponchielli's Dance of the Hours, and turned it into a hilarious letter from a miserable kid at summer camp.
With Joe Spivey, he developed poison ivy. Take me home, oh, what a take home. if you miss me. I wouldn't even let Aunt Bertha.
The lyrics are a laundry list of disasters. All the counselors hate the waiters and the lake has alligators. It was a genius piece of satire that resonated with every parent who had ever sent their kid away for the summer and every kid who had ever hated being there. While most songs at the time were about romance or the surf culture, this track was purely about the mundane misery of childhood.
Have some fun if it stops raining. I went hiking.
It reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and even won a Grammy for Best Comedy Performance. The insider secret here is that Sherman almost didn't release it because he thought it was too specific to Jewish summer camps.
You remember Jeffrey Hardy?
But it turned out that the feeling of being stuck in a swamp with poisonous ivy was a universal human experience. It's one of the few comedy songs that is still quoted today, proving that relatable humor can turn a classical symphony into a top-charting comedy masterpiece. The Name Game by Shirley Ellis, 1964. If you've ever sat in a classroom and tried to rhyme your friends' names with banana, fanana, faux fanana, you have Shirley Ellis to thank or blame.
Then I say the name again with an F very plain, then a B.
In 1964, Ellis took a simple children's playground game and turned it into a high-energy R&B track. The song is literally a set of instructions on how to create rhyming nicknames for any person, using a repetitive, hypnotic beat that gets stuck in your head for days.
Will appear, and then I say Bo at a B, then I say the name.
It was a joke song that was actually a linguistic puzzle. The song was a massive success, reaching number 3 on the charts. However, it came with a hilarious warning for kids. You have to be careful with names like Chuck or Buck because the rhyming scheme accidentally creates some very not-for-radio curse words. Shirley even mentions in the song, but if the first 2 letters are ever the same, drop them both.
2 letters are ever the same, drop them both, then say the name.
This secret rule added a layer of mischief to the song that made it a favorite at parties. It is the ultimate example of a nonsense song that used pure, simple repetition to conquer the charts and stay in the public consciousness for decades. Wooly Bully by Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs, 1965. This is one of the most famous gibberish songs in history. When Sam the Sham walked into the studio, he didn't actually have a full set of lyrics. He started the song by counting off in a mix of Spanish and English, uno, dos, tres, cuatro, and then launched into a story about a woolly bully. Nobody knew what a woolly bully was. It was actually the name of Sam's cat, and nobody could understand half of the lyrics. The song was loud, messy, and featured a chaotic saxophone solo that sounded like a party gone wrong. Despite the fact that most radio DJs couldn't even tell what the song was about, it became the #1 record of the entire year in 1965, according to Billboard. It actually outsold the Beatles and the Rolling Stones that year. The joke was that the song was so catchy that the lyrics didn't even matter. It became a staple of every frat party and high school dance in America. For your video, this is a great example of energy over substance. It proved that if you have a killer beat and a funny-sounding title, you don't need to make any sense to become the biggest artist in the world. 6. They're Coming to Take Me Away, Ha Ha Ha. Napoleon XIV, 1966. This is arguably the strangest song to ever reach the top 5 of the Billboard Hot 100. Recorded by Jerry Samuels under the name Napoleon XIV, the song is a frantic, paranoid monologue about a man who has lost his mind because his dog ran away. As the song progresses, the beat gets faster, a siren-like whistle blows, and Napoleon's voice gets higher and higher until he's literally screaming. It's a dark, surreal piece of comedy that feels more like a fever dream than a pop hit. The song was so controversial that many radio stations eventually banned it because they thought it was making fun of mental illness. However, the twist that fans loved was the B-side of the record, which was literally the exact same song played entirely in reverse. It was a total troll move by the artist. Despite the controversy, it sold over 1 million copies in its first month. It remains a cult classic and a reminder of the 1960s experimental side, where even a song about a funny farm could become a massive commercial success. 7. Winchester Cathedral by the New Vaudeville Band, 1966. In the middle of the British invasion, while bands like The Who were smashing guitars and playing loud rock,
Winchester Cathedral, you're bringing me down. You could have done something, but you didn't. She wouldn't have gone far away if only you.
a songwriter named Jeff Steffens decided to go in the opposite direction. He wrote Winchester Cathedral as a tribute to the 1920s vaudeville era. He used a megaphone to give his voice that old-timey radio sound, and included a whistling solo and a brass band. It sounded like something your great-grandfather would dance to, not a teenager in 1966.
You didn't do nothing. You let her walk.
The song was a massive joke on the current trends, but it worked perfectly. It knocked the Supremes off the #1 spot and went on to win a Grammy for Best Contemporary Rock and Roll Recording, which is hilarious because the song is the exact opposite of rock and roll.
Now everyone knows just how much.
The band didn't even exist when the song was recorded. Steffens had to hire musicians to form a fake band just so they could go on tour and perform the hit. It proves that sometimes retro irony is the most powerful tool in the music industry. 8. The Ballad of the Green Berets by Sergeant Barry Sadler, 1966. In a decade defined by peace and love and anti-war protests, the biggest hit of 1966 was a dead serious, patriotic tribute to the Special Forces.
Who jump and dive, men who mean upon their chest. These are men, a ray has met his fate. He has.
Sergeant Barry Sadler was a real-life Green Beret who wrote the song while recovering from a leg injury. While it wasn't a joke to Sadler, it was a massive anomaly in the pop charts. At a time when the Beatles were experimenting with psychedelics, Sadler was singing about brave men as they fly through the sky over a military drumbeat. It spent 5 weeks at #1 and sold millions of copies. The ridiculous part here is the cultural clash. It was a #1 hit in the same era as Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Their chest. These are men.
It became a flashpoint for the generational divide in America. For your video, this is a perfect example of a song that topped the charts by being the exact opposite of everything else on the radio.
The Green Beret.
It shows that the 1960s charts weren't just about hippies. They were a chaotic mix of intense patriotism and psychedelic rebellion. 9. Sugar Sugar by the Archies, 1969. This is the ultimate fake band success story.
I just can't believe the loveliness of loving you. For a little sweetness, pour it all over me. Pour it all over. You got me wanting you.
In 1969, music mogul Don Kirshner was tired of dealing with real rock stars who had egos and creative differences. He decided to create a band that could never talk back, a group of cartoon characters from the Archie comics. He hired session musicians to record Sugar Sugar,
The wonder of this feeling too. I just can't believe it's true.
a sugary sweet pop song that was designed to be as catchy and perfect as possible. The joke was
Sugar.
hated bubblegum pop. The song became a massive global #1 hit and was the top-selling song of 1969, beating out legendary artists like Led Zeppelin and David Bowie.
I just can't believe it's true.
For a
People were literally buying records of a band that didn't exist. It proved that you didn't need a face or a soul to have a hit. You just needed a melody so sweet that it was impossible to ignore. It paved the way for future virtual bands like Gorillaz, showing that the industry could thrive on pure, manufactured fiction.